Welcome back to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar, and this is your daily news update. Major escalation in Bangladesh. Their protests nationwide have now brought on a nationwide crackdown by the government. A shoot-on-sight curfew is in effect. Drone strike hits Tel Aviv, and Israel is hitting back hard, setting the skyline of a major city on fire. Freedom of speech is under attack in Italy, listeria outbreak in the U.S., and we'll tell you where it's coming from, and a whole lot more on today's report. We do want to thank our sponsor before we dive in, Genesis Gold Group. They help people who have retirement accounts in stocks and bonds. It's not been a good week for stocks, and yet silver and gold have come down too, so you can move over. If you want to talk to them about what you can do with your retirement account to make it more secure in physical metals, Jonathan and his team would love to talk to you, answer your questions. There's no pressure. There is no commitment. If you do click the link at the end of the video, fill out the form, they will get in contact with you and answer your questions. Let's start off over in Bangladesh. Pretty crazy stuff happening over there. The situation that we previously reported in Bangladesh has gotten a lot worse with riots out there. Bangladesh police firing live rounds yesterday after the previous day they shut off all internet across the whole country of 170 million people. That's half the size of the United States by population, shut off the internet to the whole country. Bangladesh police fired live rounds at the protesters in the capital of Dhaka. 300 police reported to be injured in the scuffles back and forth. Civilian death toll now reported to be at least 114 people, but that is probably very low compared to what it actually is. Several thousand wounded or injured. It's starting to feel more and more like a Tiananmen Square type situation. We're not allowed to say that, but I'm going to say it anyway. Now the orders have come down for the military to enforce a shoot-on-sight national curfew. If you are seen outdoors on the streets, they are supposed to not give you a warning, not arrest you, but shoot you on sight. Obviously, that is a massive breach of human rights and such, but that's what's going down right there as they're trying to hold on to governmental power. Is that nation going to fall? And like I said, 170 million people packed into this tiny postage stamp right next to India. And if this goes sideways, this could destabilize India. So that's a major concern there too. A lot of people are watching this, and international groups are protesting the national curfew. Okay, let's go over to the other big news of the day. The Houthis in Yemen, which is not next to Israel, launched a drone strike from Yemen on Tel Aviv, the capital, the biggest city of Israel. Technically, Jerusalem is the capital, right? The United States recognizes that Jerusalem is the capital. So they launched this strike on Friday. It hit an apartment building. 1 civilian killed in Israel, 10 wounded. And the videos and the pictures out there are, of people's homes, right? 3 drones and a ballistic missile in total were fired. It looks like only 1 drone made it through, but video confirms that the drone did approach from over the Mediterranean, which, if you know your geography, is the opposite direction. Yemen's that way, and Mediterranean's this way, and yet the drone came in that way. So people are speculating that it flew over Egypt to get around Israel's air defense systems, came out over the Mediterranean, then looped back and hit Tel Aviv, which is a pretty sophisticated drone. And also the fact that it was able to penetrate Israel's anti-missile defenses. Maybe none of them were pointed that direction. I don't know. But it does look like the other drones were shot down and a ballistic missile shot down as well. Houthis have issued now a press release declaring war on any Arab states that intercept its missiles or drones on their way to Israel, which is kind of a big deal. They're already kind of in not a good relationship with Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia has been carpet bombing their cities for the last decade and a half. Recently, Saudi Arabia just figured that was too expensive and they just kind of stopped. It's not like they've really made peace with the Houthis, but they've just stopped carpet bombing the civilians and military targets and whatever else they found. They basically were just bombing anything they found. And they're, of course, using American-made weapons to do that, which makes us culpable. But you will never hear anyone debate that anywhere out there, because we've been doing it for decades, selling the Saudis high-tech weapons, and then they basically were using probably special forces from the United States to help targeting and target selection. Probably U.S. soldiers were involved in that stuff. And then U.S. weapons were being dropped on civilian population centers like markets, and just absolutely atrocities beyond the pale of anything that Russia has done in Eastern Europe, okay, recently. What the Saudis have done to the Houthis and to the Houthi-controlled areas is beyond the pale. What happened early Saturday, Israel hit back with a massive airstrike on Yemen in response to the deadly drone attack on Tel Aviv. The Houthi-run fuel depot in Hodeidah was completely destroyed. Massive explosions, the skyline on fire, massive fuel dump. Major airstrikes also on Lebanon. They took out a major ammo dump there, creating huge secondary explosions there as well. Israel just fed up and going off the chain in a number of locations. Hamas and Hezbollah, of course, not to be outdone, though they were outdone, launched a barrage of missiles and drones into Israel, but as of yet, no reported casualties from that. Other big news on this front is that coming Wednesday, Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, will address the United States Congress. Far leftists in Congress have said that they will either boycott the speech or they will attempt to disrupt the address. Also out there, interesting news, not sure if this is significant or not yet, but between Israel and Iran. Major GPS disruption around western Iran and around the Iranian capital of Tehran. Usually these massive GPS disturbances, like there are over basically all of Ukraine, is GPS messed up, and also across western Russia. But we're seeing that when Israel does these attacks and such like that over Lebanon and over the Gaza Strip, we saw the GPS going kind of haywire around there. And so it's interesting where there's no supposed airstrikes happening. Suddenly the GPS is going crazy over western Iran. Now, we did just hear something interesting out there. The U.S. Secretary of State commented about Iran now being 1 to 2 weeks away from having enough fissile material to make a nuke. Or is this Israel prepping to hit them back for them being ultimately culpable for the Houthis firing those drones into Tel Aviv? So I don't know, but there may be a airstrike or airstrikes that may happen over the coming days against Iran. Of course, that will be a major escalation, but we'll keep you updated about that. We got a listeria outbreak across the United States from grocery store deli cut lunch meats. So not like in a bag, but like if you go to the counter and get it sliced. 2 people have died and over 24 hospitalized. Now, the CDC has not been able to pinpoint which brands and which products exactly have caused this. so they haven't issued a recall as of yet. They are researching that, but better safe than sorry. If you don't have to eat at a deli, counter at a grocery store, you might just not want to do that for just a little bit until they pin down where this listeria outbreak is. Like I said, two dead and over 24 hospitalized because of this. Interesting thing, and this may be something to put in your hat for later. This may be interesting to come out with later. Supporters of Donald Trump at the Republican National Convention began wearing bandages over their ears. Now, this may be an interesting way, low-key way of protesting leftist violence in the future. They weren't doing it like that. It was kind of more of a solidarity and support of Donald Trump. But I'm going to throw that out to you guys. Next time the leftists are going completely crazy out there or pleading their innocence or talking about right-wing violence and stuff like that, we could start wearing the ear patches to remind them that of what their side has done. So let's just keep that in mind. President Donald Trump spoke with Zelensky. President Donald Trump, the most likely winner of this election if it happens this fall, finally getting to speak with Zelensky, who is now freaked out because he needs to talk to his new boss. And at the end of the call, President Donald Trump pledged to end the war in Ukraine quickly. Biden is still unsure of whether he wants an end to the war under any circumstances, because the last time we've heard him talk about it, he is for the war, which is weird. And he says that we have to win it. We can't negotiate it. We have to win it. And that's good because it's hurting Russia. That sounds like crazy person talk, but what coming out of him today is not. Okay, this is a crazy story out of Italy, and this is a right-wing politician. So we're gonna criticize the other side now, shall we? In Italy, a journalist was fined $5,000 for calling right-wing, conservative, anti-immigrant, illegal immigrant politician Giorgia Meloni short. Yeah, that's what she said. She posted a tweet. Let me read it to you. And you tell me if you should be fined $5,000 for saying this about a prime minister. A journalist saying this about the prime minister of their country. You don't scare me, Giorgia Meloni. After all, you're only 1.2 meters tall. I can't even see you. The court in Milan said that'll cost you $5,000. Now, while this is a right-wing politician whose policies, now right-wing in Europe is different than right-wing in the United States, right? I mean, it's a different thing. But I agree with some of the more controversial policies that she's proposing and pushing. She's kind of on our team, I guess. And then she's going out there and suing a journalist for calling her short. Yeah, can't make that up, friends. And this isn't the first time she's gone after journalists for saying stuff. Got somebody else fined $1,000 a couple of years ago. That's not good. Can we agree that the freedom to criticize and even mock politicians is an important freedom of speech? Now, if they're a private individual and you're harassing them, that's one thing. But if they're a politician, you should be able to mock them. I'm not saying you should mock them. I'm saying you should have the freedom to protest them and their policies and their height, if necessary. All right. VP Kamala Harris in the U.S. held a call with top Democratic donors yesterday, many of whom are withholding their donations until Biden steps down. Looks like that may have been to try to keep them on board. Doesn't look like President Biden is going to willingly give up. And a lot of the people speculating about that and pushing that have been trying to embarrass him out and push him out. We've talked about that. A lot of arrows pointing towards that. And now the Democrats are looking at loopholes to get him pulled out. So that's probably still going to happen. It's just they may have to drag him out of the White House kicking and screaming, which may happen soon. Don't hold your breath for the Secretary of State and the cabinet to try to recall him, because that's political suicide, okay? That's not a good thing to do, and, to label him as incapacitated. Don't hold your breath on that one. That's probably not the way it's going to happen. All right. Secretary, Secret Service, Director Kimberly Cheadle will appear before the House Oversight Committee on Monday. That should be some fireworks and should be interesting. She will almost certainly stonewall all of the questions, but she will appear before the Oversight Committee and sit there and at least be lectured at and read her statements probably as they demand her to resign. She won't resign because, like a lot of the people in the government today, she has no shame, no accountability, and no integrity. The U.S. declassified its nuclear stockpile data, even though it is nuclear weapon stockpile. Let me clarify that. Even though it's no longer required by treaty, Russia has backed out of that treaty and stopped reporting, but the United States did report anyway, which is kind of annoying that we're following the rules that nobody else is following anymore. It is interesting to see that the U.S. still has about the same number of active and inactive warheads as 2021. We were at 3,750. We're down to 3,748, right? So we lost 2 nuclear weapons overall. But that is still significantly down from the 31,255 we had back in the late 60s. Now, of course, the nuclear weapons we have today are much more sophisticated, much more powerful. Generally speaking, they're much more powerful, but we have a lot less of them. And we continue, over the last 20 years, have continued to reduce our stockpiles so that we have less than Russia does. And we keep saying Russia is, unable to keep up with us, and yet on the only number that counts, I keep reiterating us. Aircraft carriers are a joke, okay? Aircraft carriers, everything that's not a nuclear weapon in a nuclear war is irrelevant. And you may not believe that, but that's just the truth, okay? It's like somebody has like brass knuckles when everyone else has, boomsticks, okay? You're gonna lose that. It's irrelevant. As long as you don't get too close to anybody, nobody cares, right? And let's move up to Canada, where Canada's foreign minister has called for better ties with China, calling for stable relations with China during his visit to Beijing. Now, they've been having an issue between Canada and China because Canada decided to arrest one of the managers of the Chinese telecom giant Huawei. And China didn't like that so much, so China started locking up Canadians. Because, that's what normal countries do. You had legitimate charges? Well, we'll find some legitimate charges against some of your citizens and see how that goes. Yep, that's about as petty as China is acting right now, and Canada's been not really on board with that. So they're trying to stabilize relations because Trudeau definitely wants to go over and kiss the ring. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. We'll keep you updated on what's going on out there. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. If you want to get some more information from Genesis Gold, there's a link right here on the screen. Fill out your information and they will get in contact with you. Or you can find their phone number down in the description down below. If you give them a call, make sure you do mention this channel. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.